This is the Louie T Network. You are now officially in the lab room. It's that time again. It's that time again to go hard in the off season, cause we trying to win. We gon' go so hard, we don't take no days off. Hopefully one day it's all gonna pay off.
Who else could it be? Me, your me, Louie T. Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2017 NFL Draft using our baseball grade scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series. We cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in X said team's draft, apply bonuses when necessary, get an aggregate score, and then divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format, or as I like to call it, the Up format. Simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Couple of examples: Panthers, next. Carolina, next. Next, Carolina, next, Panthers. You could go as far as say Carolina Panthers next, but why would you want to do all of that? You don't want to get too wordy. You want to be as efficient as possible. These responses are coming in lightning quick. Gotta have a quick trigger finger. Want to get as quick a comment in as possible with the requisite comments next in a team. So just nickname and next probably be suffice. Get it up there as quick as possible. And so you guys have done a phenomenal job of doing that throughout the process thus far. Continue to do what you've been doing. And because you've been so flawless in your activity, the next team up in the series picked by you guys out there, none other than the Carolina Panthers. And we're going to talk about their 2017 NFL Draft. And to me, this is one of Dave Gettleman's best drafts as a Carolina Panther GM. I've always shredded Dave Gettleman for his lack of number of picks each and every single year. And I get it. I understand. And I'm a firm believer in going in and getting the guys that you want to get and getting out. There's no need to select 12 players in the draft. There's no need to select 10 players in the draft because, again, there aren't enough roster spots for all of these guys to make your team. And a lot of these guys aren't going to make your team. They're not going to make your practice squad. And I understand giving away the 6th and the 7th round picks to move up in the 2nd round and get the guy that you're targeting. I understand the thought process there. You want to go up and get Devin Funchess, so you trade away a couple of picks later in the draft to move up and get him in the 2nd round. I get that. All right, but there's something to be said about still getting enough players. I've killed him over the last 4 or 5 years for these 5 and 6 player drafts. And you start to see how that can erode your roster when things like last year happen to you, when injuries start to hit and you become ravished at certain positions. The lack of depth because of guys that you didn't draft starts to really rear its ugly head. And I think now the Panthers are starting to make a conscious decision that we need to upgrade our football team, and we need to do it via the draft. And then you lose some players in the offseason. You gain some too. You brought some guys back home. Julius Peppers and Captain Munnerlyn come to mind. But you lose guys in the offseason. A.J. Klein. You also lose Tolbert in the offseason as well. So that on the heels, of course, of losing Josh Norman the offseason before, which I thought really shaped and molded what was to come for your season in 2016. You take a major step back after making the Super Bowl in 2015. And I think now that you kind of weathered the storm, you have some young guys at the cornerback position. I feel like you need to replenish some other positions. And I look at this draft and I'm so intrigued because I look at some of these selections and I ask myself, okay, what do you guys have up your sleeve? Because some of these picks don't scream Carolina Panther to me. The first two, no more than the first two. These first two selections make me think that this offense is going in a totally different direction. And I am so anxious to see what the Panthers look like offensively in 2017. And so we'll start there in the first round, 8th overall selection, Stanford running back Christian McCaffrey is the selection. I'm not going to break him down here on this program because I've already done so in the Draft Prospects 101 series. You want to check out Christian McCaffrey's full thorough breakdown and other guys that I was able to get to prior to the draft. Check out the 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series in the playlist section of the Louie T Network. And so quickly, I just want to talk about this selection. First of all, I was shocked when this selection was made. I didn't hear rumblings and grumblings of the Panthers potentially taking Christian McCaffrey at 8 until literally 48 hours prior to the draft. Now, Panthers fans out there, some of them I think were aware that the Panthers were sniffing around McCaffrey. I actually heard some rumors from Panthers fans telling me, hey man, we are hot on the trail of Christian McCaffrey. And I just didn't believe it because I said he doesn't fit what the Carolina Panthers do offensively. They need a big, physical, strong back that can take that rock and tote it 25 times if need be. And that's not what Christian McCaffrey is. He can have a total of 25 touches in any given game, but to just say we're going to turn around and hand it to him 25 times, that's not who he is. That's why I think a lot of people, and the logical fit was Leonard Fournette. Well, Fournette wasn't going to make it to the 8th overall selection because we knew he wasn't getting past Jacksonville. And unless the Panthers were willing to move up to get him, he wasn't going to fall to them. So I didn't think they were going to take a back in the first round, 8th overall. I thought they were going to go defensive side of the football, and more specifically defensive end, where I thought they could have really used an upgrade on their football team. But that's nor here nor there. I'm anxious to see what they decide to do with Christian McCaffrey. He's a chess piece. He's a guy that you move around the football field. He's a guy that you can split out wide and throw the football to out in the backfield. He's a guy that you can throw it to out of the backfield. He's a guy that you can line up in the backfield and do some creative things with. Get him in some mismatch situations on a linebacker or a safety. He'll win those all day long. And so I'm anxious to see how they envision Christian McCaffrey fitting into their offense. And I love this selection because it signals a changing of the guard in Carolina in terms of explosiveness on offense. This and their next selection, to me, the screams, we want to be explosive offensively. We're tired of having to put together 13 and 14 play drives. A game that comes to mind, that Kansas City game last year was a farce. It was a joke. And it's games like those that the Panthers should have and probably should have easily have won, but didn't because their offense was too stagnant. You add guys like Christian McCaffrey in your next selection in this draft, and all of a sudden now it changes the way you can defend and have to defend the Carolina Panthers. And again, I am anxious to see how they utilize Christian McCaffrey because he can hurt you on special teams. He can hurt you out of the backfield. He can hurt you in the backfield. And like I said, mismatch nightmare, chess piece. Can't wait to see how the Panthers deploy him because once again, they've already got weapons on their team in Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess. Still got Greg Olsen going at a very high rate. And then, of course, Cam Newton, the ultimate weapon at the quarterback position. You add a guy like Christian McCaffrey in the backfield and the next player that we're going to talk about. And all of a sudden now, this is a scary offense in Carolina. Can't wait to see what they have in store for Christian McCaffrey. First round, 8th overall selection. Stanford running back Christian McCaffrey for me. Is it all? He's hit deep. You can put him on the board. Yes. So home run for the Carolina Panthers in the first round. This is a dynamic game changer at the running back position. You can put him on punt returns. You can split him out wide. He can catch it out of the backfield. He can run it out of the backfield. He can hurt you in the screen game. He can hurt you out in space. He can hurt you in a number of ways. And that's something that the Panthers have lacked from the running back position since D'Angelo Williams left this football team. I like Jonathan Stewart. I don't love Jonathan Stewart. I love this selection by the Carolina Panthers. And I also love this next pick, second round, 40th overall pick, the Ohio State University athlete, Curtis Samuel. Now, I call him an athlete because this was a guy that we didn't talk about a lot during the draft process. And the reason we didn't talk about him is because he's a positionless player. He doesn't come in with one specific position that is defined and you see him as that type of player. This is a guy that played running back. This is a guy that played receiver. This is a guy that returned kicks. This is a guy that did some of everything for the Ohio State Buckeyes. You didn't know where he was going to line up, snap in, snap out. And because of that, hard to really put this guy in a box. So again, much like Christian McCaffrey, I am anxious to see what the Panthers have in store. Most likely they're going to make him a slot receiver, but we're going to talk about all the things that he brings to the table and some of the things that he lacks. So I'm anxious to see what they do with him because, again, even if they categorize him as a receiver and try to put him in the slot, I expect them to do a number of different things with him. Let's talk about him. First pro. Speed. Pure unadulterated speed for Curtis Samuel. 4.3, 140. It's apparent. You watch him on tape, you see it. It's there. And you couple it with the next pro, acceleration. And that's what makes this guy so dangerous. You get him out in space, you give him a lane, and you can kiss it goodbye. This guy is gone and you're not going to catch him. And so he's one of those guys that, again, the Panthers have lacked this offensively. They've had big guys, okay, physical guys, but not the type of guys that run away from you. Ted Ginn Jr. was that. Philly Brown was that. But again, no one was afraid of either one of those guys other than them beating them deep, okay? These are guys that can catch the short pass and turn it into a touchdown. All right, and there are some plays. Let's get to the next pro because I want to talk about a play in particular that I felt like was the biggest play of the Ohio State Buckeye season that no one talks about. And so the next pro is agility and ability to create in space. Now, everyone talks about the J.T. Barrett 4th and 1 conversion against Michigan. And yes, that was a big play because without that, they don't win the game. But no one talks about the play that set that up. There's no 4th and 1 without the Curtis Samuel 3rd and 9, run backwards, make 6 guys miss, then go forward and pick up 8 yards and set up 4th and 1. That play in itself was phenomenal. I don't understand how they let him break contain so many times on that play and still pick up. He went backwards about 7 yards, then went forward another 8 yards and set up a 4th and 1 situation that I didn't think J.T. Barrett picked up, but they gave it to him anyway. And then he being Curtis Samuel, scores the game-winning touchdown to beat Michigan and send Ohio State to the playoffs where they got drubbed by Stanford. But nonetheless, his ability to make guys miss and create in space is off the charts. Something, again, that the Panthers have lacked out of the backfield, something that the Panthers have lacked in the pass game, to just be able to dump it down to somebody and watch them work. Okay, they've been methodical offensively for far too long, especially when you've got explosive playmakers like Cam Newton on this football team. They need guys that can be explosive. You add a guy like Christian McCaffrey and now Curtis Samuel to the mix, and all of a sudden it changes the whole way you play this Panthers team defensively. Home run threat is the next pro. Again, I've been harping on this, so I'm not going to talk about it too much longer, but he's the type of guy that you can dump it down to on a 2-yard swing pass out of the backfield, and you give him a couple of blocks, and next thing you know, it's one-on-one with him and the safety. He droops the draws off of that dude, and he's off to the races for a 57-yard touchdown. And just like that, 2 plays, 59-yard drive, you're in the end zone. Those are so lovely, and that's what this guy brings to the table each and every single time he touches the football. He's a threat to take it the distance. Supreme versatility. This is a guy that at Ohio State was a running back, was a wide receiver, and a kickoff return guy. So again, much like Christian McCaffrey, you can put this guy anywhere on the field and create a mismatch. And he can hurt you in a number of different ways. So again, much like I said with McCaffrey, I am anxious to see how the Panthers use Curtis Samuel, because he is a unique football player that if you draft, much like I said with McCaffrey, you must have a plan for them. You don't draft these guys because they are XYZ. You draft these guys because you want to do XYZ with them. And so I'm anxious to see what they have in store for Curtis Samuel. And special teams value, the last pro, a guy that can hurt you, like I said, on special teams. You give him a seam and boom, he's out the back door and he's going for a score. So I love what he brings to the table from that aspect of the game, as well as we go to his cons. And I mentioned this right off the bat. He's a positionless player, is Curtis Samuel. And that's the first con, is that he doesn't have a distinction. He's not great at running back. He's not great as a receiver. He's, to me, okay as a kickoff return guy. So he's not a guy that comes in with one strong, dominant trait or position, he's a guy that you just say, all right, man, you can do this, that, and that. We're going to have you doing all of those things, and we just want you to do it well. So that hurt him throughout the draft process, I think. That's part of the reason I don't think we talked about him. A lot of people were asking me as we were doing these draft breakdowns and talking about, what about Curtis Samuel? I'm like, what about him? No one's talking about him because he didn't have a position. You don't know where to put him and where to rank him. Where does he rank with running backs? Well, he's not really a running back. Where does he rank with receiver? Well, he's not really a receiver. So where do you put this guy? People had a hard time doing that, and that's one of his cons. His next con is the biggest one for me because I think the Panthers view him as a guy that they're going to move around, obviously, but I think they're going to categorize him as a receiver. And if that's the case, he's got unnatural hands and, to me, poor ball tracking and adjustment skills. He doesn't adjust to the ball well. And to me, if you want to see the indictment of Curtis Samuel and the indictment of his hands, turn on the playoff game versus Clemson. To me, that's all you need to see to determine that he doesn't have natural hands. If the ball isn't put where he can catch it with his chest, he's much more comfortable catching a football with his body than he is with his hands. It's apparent. If that ball is away from his frame at all, you run the risk of throwing an interception because he will extend for the football, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to tip off of his fingers, just like it did in that playoff game versus Clemson. Ohio State's moving down the field. They're trying to get on the scoreboard for the first time all night, and we would later see them get shut out in that game. And they're in the red zone. They're looking to get points, and J.T. Barrett throws the football to Curtis Samuel. Again, J.T. Barrett was high all game long. Ball caroms off of the hands. Should have been caught. Caroms off the hand of Curtis Samuel into the hands of Cordrea Tankersley. And that was really the best opportunity for them to score all night. And it went by the wayside because, to me, frankly, Curtis Samuel doesn't have natural hands. He does not catch the football very well at all. So if you're moving him to the slot, we know Cam Newton, and I've said this since day one, Cam Newton is often high, which is the reason I think the Panthers have surrounded him with 6'4" and 6'5" and 6'6" targets, because he throws the football high. His release point is high. His footwork has always been a point of emphasis, which, to me, when you have a strong arm, those strong arm quarterbacks tend not to have the best footwork because they rely on their arm strength. Cam Newton is no different. And so his balls tend to sail, and these guys bail him out. You can't do that with Curtis Samuel. If the football is not on the money, he's going to drop the football. He's going to have it tip off his fingers. If you put too much sauce on it, and you know Cam puts hot sauce on everything, hot sauce to go on the football to Curtis Samuel, you're asking for trouble. So that's something that you have to look out for. But other than that, there are ways you can get this man a football and have him make plays, even in the slot. Like I said, he's going to win, and he's going to win big. And I'm anxious to see how the Panthers use those first 2 selections in their offense. I am dying to see what it looks like in the preseason. I cannot wait. This is another tremendous selection from the Panthers in the 2nd round, 40th overall, Ohio State athlete. Curtis Samuel for me is a triple. I am anxious to see what this guy brings to the table for the Carolina Panthers and how they plan to utilize him. And these are some picks that go against the grain for the Panthers. They go against the norm. And this draft as a whole goes against what the Panthers have done over the last few years. Instead of drafting 5 players, they got a draft here where you're looking at 7 guys. And then that's the number. That's the magic number. 7 guys is what you should be drafting every single year. That's why there are 7 rounds, and you're supposed to have a pick in each round. Love this draft, and I love those first 2 selections. They scream, we want to be more dynamic offensively, and I couldn't think of a team that needed more of a makeover in their backfield and just offensively as a whole than the Carolina Panthers. As you go to the 2nd round, yet again, 64th overall selection, Western Michigan offensive lineman Taylor Moton is the selection. 6'5", 319 pounds. Size and length are the first pros. This is a 6'5", 319-pound mountain of a man with 34-inch arms. So that length and that size right there tells you that this guy has the potential to be a tackle. From that standpoint right there, a lot of people look at him as a tackle that needs to kick inside the guard. I'll give you my opinion when we get towards the end of this breakdown, but I'll tell you this much. He's got the size, the requisite size. Those first 2 boxes length and size need to be checked off in order to be outside in the NFL. He's got both of those under control. Physicality. This is a big, strong man. When he gets his hands on you, 9 times out of 10, it's game over. And that's why a lot of people want to kick him inside the guard, because he's a man mover, which is the next pro. He can be a man mover at times. In the run game, you will see him cave down the right side of the line, absolutely come down on a down block and just obliterate that side of the line, create a huge crease for the running back, and he'll take off and pick up huge chunks of yardage right behind the block of Taylor Moton. So again, this is a guy that is physical in the trenches, can move men against their will. He anchors well in the pass game. That's the next pro. And he can sit down. Now, I did see him get bullied a couple of times. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he can anchor down for the most part, does a really good job of using that length to keep defenders at bay and anchor down when need be. Solid recovery, and this is where that length plays a huge part as an offensive lineman, especially a tackle, is sometimes you're going to lose, okay? As a tackle, you're not going to win on every single rep, but the good ones, hell, the great ones, they can recover even when they're beaten. All right, you think Joe Thomas wins on every rep? No, but what he does do when he does get beat is use his length to push that defensive lineman around the pocket, which allows the quarterback to step up. So you have to be able to recover. Length allows you to do that. Taylor Moton has that length, and it allows him to recover sometimes when he is beaten. He's versatile. He's a guy that played both right guard and right tackle while at Western Michigan, and a lot of people think right guard is more of his natural fit at the next level. Again, I'll tell you what I think when we get to the end of his breakdown, but this is a guy that can offer you that versatility in a pinch. First of all, I'm always a proponent of, hey, let's try the guy as a tackle first. If he's got the size and the measurements and the capability, let's try him outside first, because it's harder to find tackles in this league than guards. Anybody can play guard. You'd like to think you can make a guy into a guard. It's harder to find guys to man up the tackle positions in this league. So I'd like to try him outside first. If that doesn't work, much like the Redskins did with their first round pick a few years ago, you take a guy, you draft him as a tackle, it doesn't work, you kick him inside the guard. It's not a hard premise to go with, okay? You try them outside, they don't work. Brandon Sheriff was thought to be at least a right tackle. Didn't work, kick him inside the guard, he's a Pro Bowl guard. That's what you do with Taylor Moton, to me, if he doesn't work on the outside. And durability, started every single collegiate game he played in for Western Michigan from the first day he stepped on campus and got into the lineup until the last day. This was a guy that was as reliable as it gets, and the best ability is availability, and Taylor Moton was available each and every Saturday and sometimes Thursday for the Western Michigan Broncos. As we go to his cons, inconsistencies. And I'm going to talk about a number of things that strike me with him. His hand placement is inconsistent. His footwork is inconsistent. He lunges from time to time, and his anchor is inconsistent. So let's knock these down quickly one by one. Hand placement. Every now and again, he'll get outside the numbers. Okay, he'll be a little high, and that's when he gets himself into trouble, and that's when you start seeing him be a little grabby. So again, hand placement is key, because if you get your hands out too wide and that defensive lineman gets his hands inside of yours, he's got the leverage, he's got the ability to push you up and jack you up and put you on skates. Speaking of which, talk about him anchoring and doing a good job. Well, that's exactly what happened to him against TJ Watt in the bowl game versus Wisconsin. His hands were outside, they were too wide. TJ Watt's hands were inside, up under his chest plate. He picked him up and threw him into the quarterback. Watt then swatted the ball out of the quarterback's head, forcing a fumble in that football game. And that's what can happen when your hands aren't where they're supposed to be. You give away your advantage of length, and you also take away your ability to anchor down if the other guy's able to get their hands up inside your pad. So you get inconsistent hand placement, and the ability to anchor is inconsistent. He lunges from time to time. I want to see him move his feet. Okay, there are times where he gets beat around the edge. because he doesn't move his feet. He lunges. He turns into a heavy-legged waist bender. And that's not what you want as an offensive lineman, especially at the tackle position when you're on an island and have to fend for yourself. You have to move your feet. And a lot of times he will get lazy and lunge. That's problematic in his footwork. Speaking of which, you lunge when your footwork is bad, when you don't move your feet, when you don't get out of your stance fast enough and a guy blows by you, you lunge, you start reaching. His footwork is a little spotty. Sometimes his steps are too big. They need to be a little bit more choppy so that he can move faster. Again, a lot of things that with technique and coaching, you can fine tune and fix. These aren't problems that you can't fix, which leads me to this final con. He's not a great athlete. So the question then becomes, guard or tackle? I already told you, I'll try him at tackle first. You got Michael Orr issues. Is he coming back? You don't know. I'm hearing all these concussion stories. I think he needs to hang it up. I don't know what's going to happen with him. Bottom line is you need help at the tackle position. So if I'm the Carolina Panthers, I'm trying Taylor Moton at tackle first. If it doesn't work, then you kick him inside to guard. Either way, you're going to get some production out of this guy, and I like him a lot. Second round, 64th overall selection. Western Michigan offensive lineman Taylor Moton for me is another triple. Really like this selection. I thought he did some quality bang-up work at Western Michigan, helping them to a 13-1 record into the bowl game. They were undefeated before losing their only game of the season to Wisconsin in what turned out to be a whale of a ball game. So I think Taylor Moton has the ability to be a force at the next level. A lot of people think he's a dynamite guard and halfway decent tackle. We'll see what happens with him moving forward. As we go to the third round, 77th pick overall, Texas A&M defensive end Deshaun Hall is the selection. I thought the Panthers needed to address defensive end. This is their way of doing it here. Let's talk about this guy. He looks the part of a Carolina Panther, I will say. 6'5", 266 is where we start with his size and length. He's got the size, the requisite size, and they feel like he can put on some more weight. And this is a guy that was an outside edge rusher in a 3-4 stance, in a 2-point stance, before finally putting his hand in the dirt in his senior season at Texas A&M and putting on some more weight. So this is a guy that kind of transformed his body, and we'll talk about that. And so they think he can even put on more weight. This is a guy that came to Texas A&M at right around 245 as a freshman. By his junior year, he was 260 pounds. By his senior season, he was 270. So this is a guy that has put on weight, and they're thinking that he could probably get to about 275 and be a stout guy in the run game. And he's got 35-inch arms, and it doesn't matter how much pounds he puts on, he's going to have those 35-inch arms. They're not going to shrink. So this guy's got the size and the length necessary to be edge rusher and, at least if nothing else, a stout edge-setting point of attack defensive end in this league. Can be stout at the point of attack. That's the next pro. I've seen him stand up tackles, and again, when you're in the SEC, you're going up against the best. And I thought he did a quality job against some of these tackles, standing them up at the point of attack and trying to get to the football. Can stack and shed. That's the next pro. So put those two things together. You're stout at the point of attack. You extend those 35-inch arms, those vines. You extend those, keep the tackle off of you. Ball carrier comes your way, you discard, you stack and shed, you get to the ball carrier. So I saw him do that a number of times on tape. I would like to see him do that even more on tape. And I think as he plays more, he will get better and have a better feel for when he needs to do that moving forward. High motor. The thing I love about Deshaun Hall is that you know you're getting a guy that when he's on the field is going to give you everything he's got on every single snap. And that's something that I truly appreciate. After watching all of these prospects come into the league, you see guys that take snaps off. You see guys that don't chase plays down from the backside. You see guys that say, okay, the rest of the guys got it. They don't need me on this one. You don't get that from Deshaun Hall, and that's refreshing to see. And then the final pro is he's got versatility. This is a guy that lined up in the wide 9 technique, 5 tech if you need be, and I think a lot of people think he can put some more weight on and potentially be a 5 tech, but you're not going to ask him to do that with Carolina. I think you're going to ask him to be a base 4-3 defensive end. And so this is a guy that also played 3-4 outside linebacker in a 2-point stance. So he can do a number of different things, but I think you're going to ask him to be a base 4-3 defensive end in your defense and go and get the passer as well as try to stop the run. And the final pro is he's got upside. And, you know, I don't like to use the upside word just because upside is so... It's such a vague way to describe someone. Oh, he's got upside. Everybody's got upside. That's why you draft these guys, because you expect them to get better with coaching at the next level. But he's a guy that he hasn't played a ton of defensive line, hand in the dirt, 3-point stance. He's only got 1 season of that. So a lot of people feel like, and I'm included, that he can get even better with coaching and time. And so I think there is actual upside here with Deshaun Hall as we get to his cons. He's still learning how to play with his hand in the dirt. That's the first con. Like, you can tell there's still some things he's not comfortable with. There's still some things he's learning how to do. He's learning on the fly. And again, in the SEC, man, it's a different league there, all right? It's different than any other division or conference in college football. It's just different. You don't have time to figure things out on the fly. And there were times where you could tell he was out of sorts. He was out of place with his hand in the dirt because that was foreign to him. He hadn't done it. He was an outside linebacker, different responsibilities. He put on weight, so it was different for him. So you could tell he's still learning the nuances of being a defensive end and what his responsibility is at all times. Even getting off the snap sometimes, I think he's a little tardy doing that. So just a number of things that I think with more reps as a defensive end with his hand in the dirt, he'll be more comfortable. He's a low impact pass rusher. And what I mean by that is he doesn't impact the game. And a lot of people, I was included, he was the other guy opposite of Myles Garrett. He was the other guy. And so when you're the other guy, you get one-on-one matchups. When Myles Garrett is opposite of you at the other end position, no one's paying attention to Deshaun Hall. So you're getting one-on-one matchups. You need to win those matchups and force them to pay attention to you because all the attention is going on the opposite side of the field to Myles Garrett. So you're getting a free run, one-on-one. He didn't win those matchups enough for me. He's a low-impact rusher, doesn't have a bevy of moves. Again, this is a guy that's just learning the position, so I'm not going to beat him up. But there is so much left for this guy to learn, and he doesn't impact the game enough from a pass rushing standpoint right now. And so he's a low impact pass rusher for me, which is why I'm kind of on the fence about this pick for the Panthers, because I thought they needed more of a guy that could get after the quarterback and be a difference maker. This is not that type of guy, but nonetheless, you still needed bodies at defensive end. You ran out of them at one point last year, so this is a guy that is definitely going to be someone that you can count on week in, week out to do his job on the defensive line. And finally, he's got stiff hips. When you have stiff hips, it's hard for you to turn the corner and shorten the edge. He's not going to bend the corner. He's not going to run that arc in that track and shorten the distance from the edge to the quarterback. He's a guy that's going to find it hard to redirect because he got stiff hips. So again, this is all a part of him being a low impact pass rusher for me. And so because of all of those things, even though I think there's some upside here in the 3rd round, 77th overall selection, Texas A&M defensive end, Deshaun Hall for me is a double. I see this guy having a glass ceiling. I don't see him being a 13.5 sack guy down the road. Max 8 sacks for this guy as a career high, and I think you're stretching it if he gets that many. Now again, if you start blitzing defenders and he lucks into a few sacks, yeah, he could end up with 10. I've seen guys who can't get to the quarterback end up with 9.5, 10 sacks in this league. He could be one of those guys, but to me, if he's winning on his own, I think he's going to end up with about 6, 6.5, 7 sacks as a guy that's all you're going to be able to get out of him on a year-to-year basis. As we move on to the next selection, 5th round, 152nd pick overall, Miami cornerback Corn Elder is the selection. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this may be one of my favorite picks in this draft. I love, from a defensive standpoint, I love what you did with the first 2 picks. I absolutely love this. Now, this guy screams Carolina Panther to me. All right. I look at Captain Munnerlyn and I say, hey, I'm glad you're back. This is really cool that we're having a homecoming party and we're bringing all the fellas back. from back in the day. But this young man right here, he's gonna find the field very quickly in his career, because I think you like what you got in James Bradbury, a guy that you selected in the second round last year. I told you I loved Daryl Worley out of West Virginia last year. I think those guys are going to end up starting for you on the outside. You need a slot guy. I think that's why you went out and got Captain Munnerlyn. But I'm telling you right now, I don't think Captain is going to be manning that position for long, because this guy here, I absolutely love Corn Elder. Let's talk about him. First pro, speed, 4.45 speed. He can run, he can chase after guys. He gets after it, man. If this guy were 6'1", this is a first round pick. The only thing that I think is really stopping him is his size. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he's the next pro. Competitiveness and tenacity. This is a guy that on every single snap wants to win. And when I say every snap, I mean, you know, corners. Corners take snaps off, right? You see these guys outside and they make a pact with the receiver. Look, man, if you don't block me, I won't try to go make a tackle. And the play's going away from us, we can take this snap off. Corn Elder isn't cutting deals with anybody. He's trying to win every snap. So if the play's going away from him, he's going to chuck the receiver in his chest, around the neck area, like boom, just to let you know I'm here and I won that snap. He's competitive. He wants to be on the action. If the ball is coming his way, he's not sitting there content with hand fighting with a receiver and stand there and stalk block and let a guy stalk block him. He is going to get to that ball carrier by hook or by crook. He's going to win. He's going to defeat a block. If he sees the ball being thrown out on a screen, he reads it, he reacts. He's in the backfield for a 3-yard loss on a tackle. That's what this guy brings to the table. He's tenacious. He's competitive. I love it. I want more of it. Physicality. He plays with an edge that says, I'm 6'2", 215, not 5'10", 183. He's got a different mentality. Guys are either wired like this or they're not. He's wired in a way that I just think every football player should be wired, but they're not. And I don't know if it's a small man complex, if there's an inferiority complex here or not, but this guy plays with a chip on his shoulder. He's physical, and I love it. He's got slot experience, played out wide and in the slot. At Miami, I think his home at the next level is definitely in the slot. I don't think he's big enough, especially in a division like the NFC South, where receivers are huge all over the place. He can't survive out wide. They'll eat him alive, so he's got to go in the slot, but he's going to be just fine in the slot. Blitz effectiveness. They blitzed him from the outside. They blitzed him from the slot at Miami, and he times it up beautifully. Gets in there, whether it's a run blitz or he's going after the quarterback. He blitzes phenomenally and gets in the backfield and makes his impact felt. Quickness and closing bursts. Does a really good job of planting his foot in the ground and driving. And whether that's on, like I said, a bubble screen where there's two receivers out that's supposed to block him and he splits them and goes and makes a tackle, or it's a slant and he plants and drives on that. Does a really good job of driving on the football, closing the distance between himself and a ball carrier, and getting in the action. He's got ball skills. There's a play, and I forget the team that they're playing against, but he makes a phenomenal play. He's in zone coverage. He's eyeballing the quarterback, and a lot of these quarterbacks in college football fail to read the underneath defender. So it's a concept that a lot of teams run. Slot guy runs a corner route, and the outside receiver is running either a speed out or he's running a stick route. And there's a zone defender at the cornerback position, usually playing cover 2, kind of playing off in a little bit of a soft cover 2 shell, and he's eyeballing the quarterback. Quarterback never sees him, thinks that corner route is open. That corner then sags underneath that corner route and picks it off. Corn Elder did it beautifully, makes a gorgeous play picking off the quarterback. It was a gorgeous play, and again, showed off the ball skills as well. And then he brings you some special teams value. He returned punts at Miami. So again, that's something else that you can throw into the mix if you're looking for this guy to potentially make the roster over someone else, and you got a little bit of a tie going on. I don't see him having any way he doesn't make this roster other than injury. If he's healthy, Corn Elder for me, he's just too tough, he's too physical, he's too tough-minded. He's just one of those guys the coaches are gonna fall in love with because he does everything at 110 miles an hour, and he does it as physically as you can do it for his size. Speaking of which, go to his cons. Size. I don't want to talk about this too much because Corn Elder doesn't care that he's 5'10", 183. So I don't care that he's 5'10", 183. Problem is, it matters that he's 5'10", 183 because Julio Jones is not 5'10", 183. Julio Jones is 6'4", 6'3", 220 pounds. So yeah, it matters that you go to Tampa and Mike Evans is 6'5", 240 pounds. So yes, it matters that he's 5'10", 183. But if you ask me, I don't care because he doesn't care. He plays the game like he's 6'3". Remember Steve Smith and how he played like he was 6'2", 6'3", 6'4"? That's the same way Corn Elder plays the game of football. And finally, long distance speed. Despite running a 4.45, I saw this guy get beat off the line of scrimmage. And sometimes I think he has a tough time making up that ground after he's beaten. So he's one of those guys that you question, if you get on top of him, can he make up that ground? He does. And you know, a lot of times, even when guys are fast, if they're not long, if they don't have the length, they can't make up that ground. A lot of these guys that are elite corners, like a Richard Sherman who's 6'3", have stupid long arms. So even when they're beat and the guy's got a step or two on them, they can extend those go-go gadget arms and deflect the football, get back into play. Corn Elder doesn't possess that. So when he gets beaten and a guy has a step or two on him, you question the long distance speed and his ability to keep up with them, because I did see him get beat on tape and guys getting behind him on a number of occasions. So with all that being said, though, man, I love Corn Elder. And in the 5th round, 152nd pick overall, Miami cornerback Corn Elder for me is a triple. This is a steal, and this was a deep cornerback draft. And I heard a lot of people talking about how they love Corn Elder and how tough he is. And if he was bigger, he'd be a much higher draft pick. I couldn't agree with that assessment more. He's so easy to fall in love with as a football player. And if he was bigger, this is a guy that would have came off the board in the 2nd round, possibly in the 1st. As we move on to the 6th round, 192nd pick overall, West Georgia fullback Alex Arma is the selection. Size 6'2", 253 pounds, is the first pro. You lose Mike Tolbert in the offseason to the Buffalo Bills, and this is a guy that you're looking to replace him with. And he's got the size, got the athleticism, which is the next pro, 4'6", 740. This guy was a two-way player at West Georgia. This guy played defensive end and was a big-time defensive end, along with another of his teammates who also was drafted in the 2017 NFL draft by the Jets, 11 picks prior to Arma getting drafted. So they formed one of the better tandems in their division and conference. But Arma played on defense and he played on offense as a tight end. So this is a really athletic guy, selfless guy, does everything he can for the team. He's a two-way player, so there is definitely athleticism here. He was a first team defensive player and a 2nd team tight end. So again, not only was he playing both sides of the ball, but he excelled on both sides of the football. He's a strong guy, 26 reps of 2 1/4. So again, physically built. Inline blocker is the next pro. As a tight end, he blocked. There's tape of him blocking. So you see what he brings to the table. Again, he's going to have to adjust because it's different as an inline blocker guy right in front of you. You're not getting a big head start. That guy's not getting a head start. You're not running into a brick wall. It's totally different having to hit a moving target. So he's not used to that because he was an inline blocker as a tight end, but that's something that they feel like they can coach him up on and he can adjust to. Moves well in space. Again, as a defensive lineman, as a tight end, he moves really well. I watched him against Valdosta State catch a pass on a corner route, make a guy miss. He broke a dude off, juked him, he fell down. Then the safety was at the top of the route, stiff arms him, runs in for about a 47-yard touchdown. So he definitely moves well in space. He's got solid hands. I think he got really soft hands. I think he can catch the football really well, so I don't really worry about him from that standpoint. I don't think the Panthers are going to be asking him to do anything exotic. They didn't used to ask Tolbert to do anything really exotic. You know, catch the occasional 2-yard touchdown pass, catch the little swing route out of the backfield. So that's probably going to be more of his role in his offense. And then He got versatility. Like I said, he played defensive end, he played outside linebacker, and he played tight end. So, again, like the New England Patriots would do, the more you can do, the better. You never know when you're going to need a guy to fill in at some other random position. He has the ability to do so if need be. As you go to his cons, he's never been a fullback before. So that's going to be a little bit of a transition for him. You know, you think, okay, yeah, he was a tight end. He's a big guy. He's physical. He should be able to make the transition easy. But it takes a while to learn the nuances of that position. Again, you're hitting a moving target. You're running into a guy that has a head start. It's tough. It's not the same as just being a tight end and having a guy literally a yard away from you and just going up and engaging. So there's different angles that you have to take. There's certain things that you have to do. There's different responsibilities. He's never been a fullback, so of course that's going to be an adjustment that he's going to have to make. Sustain his blocks a little longer is the next con. I need him to engage and stay engaged long enough so that a running back can run behind you and cut off your block and not worry about a guy disengaging and making a play. When at the tight end position, I felt like there were times where he would engage and then disengage, and the guy that he was blocking would get in on the play. And as a fullback, you're a lead blocker. That running back is entrusting you that you're going to make that block, kick open a hole, and allow him to cut off your block. I'm going to need him to sustain his blocks a lot longer than he did at West Georgia at the tight end position. And finally, not going to harp on this too long, level of competition. He dominated the competition. That's all I ever ask of small school guys. You're going to play the fullback position, not like you're coming to play wide receiver or corner or tackle. You're a fullback. I don't expect the transition to be that steep. Again, the biggest thing that I'm asking him to do is make a position change from tight end to fullback. So a level of competition really, to me, doesn't come into play as much when you're moving and you're a fullback, simply put. So in the 6th round, 192nd pick overall, West Georgia fullback Alex Armour for me is a double. A lot of potential here. Love his size, his ability to block already because he was a tight end. Now I just want to see if he's able to make the adjustment from tight end to fullback at the next level as we go to the 7th and final pick of this Panthers draft, which I haven't been able to say in about 4 or 5 years with the Panthers. Their 7th pick in the draft. Feels good to be able to say that. 7th round, 233rd overall selection. Georgia Tech place kicker Harrison Butker is the selection. And this is a guy that, again, he's a kicker, so I'm not going to go in depth with this breakdown, but you got a kicker in Graham Gano who was money for you 2 years ago, who struggled mightily last year, and it started with the first game of the season versus the Denver Broncos in the rematch of the Super Bowl. You should have won that football game. You go on the road in a hostile environment, play your ass off, give yourself a chance to win. Game-winning field goal, Graham Gano misses, and to me that was a sign of things to come for him in the season because he struggled all year long, and this team struggled. And when your place kicker isn't clutch and money for you, you're going to lose ball games. We don't talk about special teams guys enough until they start making mistakes, and then we want to talk and harp about them. And so Graham Gano struggled last year, and not only that, he's in a contract season, so it makes sense to give him some competition in camp. And so you draft a 6'4", 199-pound kicker out of Georgia Tech who went 15 of 17 last season, which that's a solid percentage. But what's really impressive, he was 8 of 8 from 40 yards and above. Now that, to me, I call that the money distance in the NFL because you're not going to kick a ton of 50-plus field goals. Yeah, you're going to have about 6 or 7 or 8 of those in any given season, but you're going to kick about 17 to 20 40-yard and above field goals throughout the season. 40 to 49 is the money distance. That's where the majority of your field goals are going to come from. He was 8 of 8 from 40 and above. So, and he had a long of 52 on the season. So that is outstanding. I love that he was money from that distance. 46 of 46 on point after touchdowns. Again, college football still kicking from the 2-yard line. So you're talking about an 18 to 20-yard extra point. Got to nail that. He did that every single one. And then 54 of his 73 kickoffs were touchbacks. That's money as well. So that shows the strength of his leg, which is big in this league because you really don't want to give teams the ability to return kickoffs if you don't have to. So this guy's going to have an opportunity in camp to unseat Graham Gano, who struggled last year, and we'll see what he does. In the 7th round, 233rd pick overall, Georgia Tech place kicker Harrison Butker for me is a double. I always love when you bring in, especially when your kicker struggles, you bring in some competition and you bring in, and this year, this is the most kickers I've seen drafted at one time. I've already broke down 3 kickers this year. So normally teams feel comfortable enough to say, hey, we'll get a kicker after the draft, bring in an undrafted, rookie free agent guy. Teams are feeling the need to go and draft guys now. So Panthers are one of those teams that felt the need to go and address their kicking position. So I love this draft by Dave Gettleman, and you don't hear me compliment Dave Gettleman very often, but I think he did a phenomenal job here of attacking a number of different positions that the Panthers needed help at. And I'm anxious to see how these first couple of picks pan out offensively. I want to see what Taylor Moton ends up being for this team. Deshaun Hall, to me, needs some work. Corn Elder, I absolutely love. Alex Arma is another guy that is going to have some work done on him at the fullback position. And then can Harrison Butker unseat Graham Gano? We're going to find out. A lot of questions from this draft. I can't wait to see some of these answers. Let's get to their scoring. You got a home run in McCaffrey in the 1st round. Got 3 triples in this draft as Gettleman did some really good work in getting Curtis Samuel, another athlete, to add with Christian McCaffrey, Moton to add along that offensive line that desperately needs some more depth. And then Corn Elder, who I just think is going to be a stud in the slot, a physical, competitive, really gutsy slot man. Those are all triples. Then you have 3 doubles. Also, Deshaun Hall, Alex Arma, and Harrison Butker. So you get a triples bonus, you get a doubles bonus in addition to that home run. You tally all of that up. It's a 24. You divide by the number of pick 7, and it's a 3.42 triple for the Carolina Panthers. By far, in a way, for me, Dave Gettleman's best draft as Panthers GM, but we're going to see how it pans out on the football field. But I am in love with what he did in this draft. It's going to do it for the Carolina Panthers on their 2017 NFL Draft wrap-up. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. Come back and join me, as I got plenty more things to break down, and you know how we do it here. So I just got one question for you. Who's next?